Alberta again addressed Mr. Mills from across the table. Mr. Mills, when will we have the pleasure of your wife's company? I expect her to visit in early July. It's hard for her to quit the Chicago house with all its responsibilities. Elizabeth shot Abraham a knowing glance. She imagined this was a sore subject with Mr. Mills. Alberta persisted. When might she join us? Mr. Mills forced a chuckle. I expect once she sees this lovely land and how quickly the village is being built, she'll give up the burden of the Chicago house. Nettie, whose fulsome frame rounded her thin cotton dress into soft mounds, flapped a hand at her nephew. Well, I always said that the house was too big, Walter. I wouldn't want to keep it up. Abraham cleared his throat. Won't you tell us about our applicants, Gideon? Yes. Gideon put his fork down beside his half-eaten pie. In fact, I should like your opinion on one applicant. Mr. Mills pushed his clean plate aside and knit his fingers over his belly. Mrs. Lucinda Clark, a widow from Peoria, has applied. Gideon turned to Mr. Mills. Walter, you mentioned her. Some time ago. Yes, said Mr. Mills. I encouraged her to write directly to you. Well, she has made a most singular proposal, continued Gideon. She appeals, based on her advanced years, to join us not as a laborer, but as a financial contributor. In place of the membership fee of $100 and ongoing labor, she offers to pay $3,000, and if the colony proves a fitting home for an elderly widow such as herself, to consider the colony in her will. Oh, I know Lucinda from Peoria, Nettie said. Everybody knows everyone's business in Peoria. She's positively dripping with money. Mr. Mills glanced fleetingly at his aunt and turned to Gideon. Since I recommended her, I feel I should speak. She's frail of body, but strong in spirit. She believes in the cause, but she is not herself accustomed to hard labor. Gideon steepled his fingers. I don't question the fine woman's spirit or belief, and her offer of funds is generous. But would others among us resent such an arrangement? Us bringing in someone who won't contribute work? Mr. Mills looked to Abraham. Abraham cupped his fingers over Elizabeth's folded hands under the table. If the others understood that Mrs. Clark's financial support benefits us all, then I believe they would accept such an arrangement. In my book I make provision for the aged and infirm, said Mr. Mills. They must be cared for by the community. Abraham tossed his head back. The Psalms say, What man is he that liveth and shall not see death? The physical body is of this world and will some day pass from it. We must show Christian compassion to the aging and sick among us. All around the table, heads bowed, and Gideon and Mr. Mills uttered amens. Gideon hunched over his clasped hands. Perhaps we could exempt those who contribute over $1,000 in funds or land from work. Well, well, Mr. Mills said, cocking his head in contemplation, we'd have to be certain not to compromise the labor supply by doing so. But your proposal has some merit, I suppose, in recognizing the contributions of the landowners and such benefactors as Mrs. Clark. Abraham rushed in. I believe this proposal would go down well with the landowners, and perhaps increase their dedication to the colony. Gideon looked up and around the table. Do the ladies have an opinion? We depend on the ladies to do the caretaking and nursing. What sort of person is this Mrs. Clark? Alberta asked Mr. Mills, her long neck stretched to its utmost. Is she a companionable type? Oh, yes, said Mr. Mills, with a curt wave of his hand. I can assure you of that. She's a gracious and learned woman. Heavens, yes, Nettie said, picking at the crumbs on her plate. She has the most delicate way of talking, which is a surprise for someone who keeps her ear horn so handy. And she has more books than you can shake a stick at. Gideon's eyes darted over Nettie and settled on Elizabeth. Well, said Elizabeth, I could mention Mrs. Clark's application to my brothers and my sister and see if they have any objections. And you, Elizabeth, said Gideon, do you see any reason to object? Elizabeth kneaded her lips a moment. If we have plenty of young women joining up, then I wouldn't see any burden among us watching after an elderly lady. Gideon beamed. Oh, I can assure you we have that. A newly-wed couple from Texas is keen on joining us, and 2 farming families from Iowa, with 8 grown children, 3 horses, 5 cows, and 41 hogs between them, are ready to load up boxcars and drive their livestock here as soon as we give them the go-ahead." "Capital, capital," declared Mr. Mills. Abraham clapped his hands together, Nettie grabbed the coffee pot to pour around, and the party made merry with the good news. But Elizabeth could only wonder if all these newcomers would upset the easy coming and going among everyone in the settlement. And the rules! Every time she turned around, a new rule cropped up. How would they keep track of them all?